We all know the Bulls aren't going to be competing for anything this year, and by that I mean competing for a playoff run or a championship, not a play-in spot, as I'm sure the front office would like to think they're competing for. But we know that that isn't even in the realm of possibility for this team to be competing for a championship, and I would even go as far as to say that next season they won't be competing for anything either, given the current roster, the talent level on the roster, players under contract, and also knowing the depth and talent level of the 2026 draft class that I'm sure the Bulls would like a piece of at the top of the lottery. However, one thing we may not be considering or maybe forgetting when we think about the long-term trajectory or plan of this roster is that AK is not a patient man, and he refuses to bottom out and tank to build through the draft like a lot of rebuilding teams do nowadays. He doesn't even like to use the term rebuild and instead uses the term transition. And it's my belief that AK, because he can't help himself, if given the opportunity, if the carrot is dangled over his head, he would make yet another move and try and accelerate their timeline to getting back to competing sooner rather than later, very similar to what we saw in 2021 when he first traded for Nikola Vucevic and made aggressive moves in free agency that summer. And while I don't think AK would necessarily go the route like he did in 2021 where he pursued old-ish type players, I would not at all be shocked if he does try and pursue big name players, younger stars who could very much be available on the trade block this season, or disgruntled young stars who could push their way out of their current organization. And there are two players I'm looking at in particular, two star level players when healthy, that are just entering their primes but are on bad teams, very bad teams, with little way for improvement in the future. Those two players being LaMelo Ball and Zion Williamson. And while I personally would prefer the Bulls not go down this route and trying to fast track their current youth movement and rebuild by going after either of these guys, it is, however, intriguing should the opportunity present itself, and it's what I'll be talking about in this video. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Before I continue on with the video, a big shout out to the sponsor of this video, Factor. Now, as you guys can imagine, creating content not only for this channel but my second channel, the NBA channel, takes a lot of time to record, edit, and put everything together, along with my day job, my kids. My time to cook is minimal to non-existent. That's why I need something fast, fresh, that isn't going to break the bank to continue on with my work, and that's honestly why I love Factor. Factor takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success. Skip the grocery stores, the prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door with over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan, and veggie, and more. The meals are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, which means more time for you. And hey, when things get hectic and you need to adjust your plan, Factor is flexible. Change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 8 meals per week, or even pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime. And guys, they're offering viewers of this channel an exclusive offer. Head over to factor75.com or click the link below to use the code 50BullsCentral to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That's code 50BullsCentral at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. And hey, let me know what meals you guys end up choosing. Now, of course, we all know the infamous quote from Arturas Karnisovas in his press conference after the trade deadline, where he said champions can be won by teams who have 1 or 2 star players or 8 or 9 very good players, which is preposterous that I can't even believe that he said that to the media, even if he truly believes that. But deep down, I really don't think AK believes that, or at least I truly hope he doesn't anyway, because when you look at the history of all the recent champions, NBA champions, they've all had at least one superstar, if not multiple. And that's really been the case since maybe the Detroit Pistons, who won it in 2004. And because of this, AK knows he needs a star level player. He knows the faster way to get one is by trading for an already established star rather than hoping to get one in the draft and waiting for them to develop and hit their prime. Now, there are a number of reasons for why I could see the Bulls front office pursuing either LaMelo or Zion this summer, but let's start with LaMelo. This one is actually pretty simple. I mean, aside from LaMelo and his play and being a star level player, albeit a flawed star, which I'll talk about his play in a little bit, but more importantly, it's Lonzo's brother. They've expressed their desire to one day play on the same team. It's been a dream of their dad, LeVar Ball, for his kids to play on the same NBA team. And above all, even putting the talent of LaMelo aside, it's box office when it comes to storylines, media coverage, the engagement and interest level from fans, more viewership, more money, more revenue for the franchise, even if the team isn't that good with LaMelo Ball, which of course is the Bulls' MO. Cash those checks without actually putting together a quality product on the floor. And so it's a win-win for the Bulls, even if LaMelo doesn't elevate the team, because just having the Ball brothers on the roster makes them more relevant than they have been for a number of years. And here's the thing. The Bulls re-signed Lonzo Ball to that 2-year deal, which a lot of us were surprised by. We like the deal, or at least I did anyway, because it's a pretty team-friendly contract. The Bulls have a team option in the second year, so it gives them flexibility going into 2026 and that offseason. And I thought keeping Lonzo around, even in a rebuild, he would be good as a mentor for the young players and gives them a level of IQ and leadership that you need to have on the court for a young, inexperienced team. But I thought for sure Lonzo wouldn't want to sign an extension with the Bulls. Why would he, given the direction of this team? Well, if they go after LaMelo this summer, now it maybe makes a little more sense for why he signed an extension. Now, here's the thing though. I personally wouldn't want LaMelo Ball. I think he's a very talented player, incredibly skilled, and he would instantly become the Bulls' best player if they acquired him. However, I don't think he's a player that is going to necessarily move the needle for you all that much. I don't think he's a player that can be a number one option on a contending team, and I don't think he's, as of yet anyway, established himself as a leader to truly lead a team in being a contender. In my opinion, he's a high volume scorer that isn't very efficient and doesn't have the IQ and situational awareness that his brother does. Although, who knows, maybe their differences in skill set could actually complement each other on the court, but I do question the fit of them together a little bit. They're both technically point guards, although both of them can play the two. Lonzo can play more off ball, while LaMelo absolutely needs the ball in his hands to be effective. But the biggest concern I have, and this really applies to both Ball brothers, is their health. We obviously know the injury history of Lonzo Ball, but LaMelo also has not been the perfect embodiment of health and availability throughout his career. The most games he's played in a given season in his career was his sophomore year, where he was an all-star, but since then, he's been in and out of the lineup. Last season, he only played 22 games. The year before that, just 36. This season, he's only played in 38 games thus far, and unlike Lonzo, it's more concerning when LaMelo is on a max contract that just started this season, and he has 4 more years left on his current deal. Maybe it's a bit of Zach LaVine PTSD when the Bulls couldn't move his contract because of the negative perception of him around the league and him being an injury-prone player that doesn't impact winning. You were just able to get off that contract, and now you're talking about taking on yet another player that is even more injury-prone than Zach. So no, I wouldn't want the Bulls to pursue LaMelo Ball, although if they did do this, I'm sure I could talk myself into it because it would be a big talent they would be bringing in and something they could potentially work with for the future as long as LaMelo is able to stay healthy. Now, I'm sure some are saying, well, what does that mean for the Bulls roster? They already have so many guards as it is. And how are you going to be able to match the salary in a trade? Well, that's the other concern I have with the Bulls going after LaMelo is that knowing AK and how bad he's been in some of his trade negotiations, he would likely overpay for LaMelo, and not only would that mean likely including Kobe White in a deal, maybe even Ayo as well, but because they have to send out bigger contracts to make the money work, it likely means they have to include Huerter and Zach Collins, which the Hornets aren't going to be interested in unless the Bulls include picks in the deal. And if the Bulls find themselves in a situation where they have to send multiple first-round picks for LaMelo Ball in addition to Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu, that's a hard pass because the Bulls should not be in the business of selling off draft capital when they're now finally in a place where they control all their draft picks, especially when it's for a player that's as injury-prone as LaMelo Ball is. And speaking of injury-prone players who are on max contracts, how about Zion Williamson? Now, I talked about the potential pursuit of Zion Williamson in a video a couple months back, so I won't go into too much detail here, but essentially, the Pelicans need to make a decision on how they want to position their future and whether they want to continue to try and build around Zion or not. And if the Pelicans land a top pick in this year's draft, which they're likely going to do given their record, they may pivot and say, yeah, we're going to start fresh and build around Cooper Flagg instead and try and ship Zion while he still has value. And just like LaMelo, I could see the Bulls biting on this because Zion is a big name. When he's healthy, he's a generational level talent. It would get the fans excited and their butts back into the seats of the UC. Like LaMelo, he's still a young enough player that could fit their current timeline, these young but established players that AK really loves. But like LaMelo, I still have some concerns with Zion, obviously injury prone, even more injury prone actually, also on a max contract. And to be honest, with both of these guys, I question their leadership, their effort, their passion for the game. And those aren't the types of players that I want on my team. Now, if the Bulls got Zion, yeah, I wouldn't be livid about it or anything because it's a change and when he's healthy, he is a star. But I think the risks of getting either Zion or LaMelo outweigh the benefits, especially when we know the Bulls front office is likely going to give up the farm to get one of these guys because they'll see it as an opportunity, a window to get back into being competitive again rather than trying to go down the rebuilding route. And if you have to mortgage your future on either LaMelo or Zion, I'm just not really for it. It would be different if you were, mortgaging your entire future for someone like Wemby or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but not for these guys. That's just my opinion, though. I would love to hear what you guys think. Do you think the Bulls would do something like this? You let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.